Hi everybody, welcome again to one of our live videos on Northern Affinity. As ever, we are on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and you'll be able to very soon get all these videos back on our website as well. So for those who are watching live, if you do have any questions or comments, please do type them in and fire them our way, and between us we'll try and answer them. Over the last few days, I've been speaking to people. We're talking about business finance and HR, two very hot topics at the moment with the world we're living in. Now, another real hot topic I think for people is all about protecting yourself, but also your business. It's a really important thing. And as you can see on the screen today, I'm delighted to say I've got Jeff Dunn with me today from Spencer Hayes. Now, I hope you don't see this as a rude thing to say, Jeff, but copious amounts of experience in the insurance world. And you'll be able to tell us about all that. We'll go through, maybe look at some kind of common mistakes maybe that businesses make, and just generally about the business environment. So as ever, Jeff, I don't want to steal the thunder. So I don't know if you want to kind of introduce yourself, tell us who you are, what you do, and that kind of thing, and then we'll jump into the questions.
Sure, Michael. Thanks very much, first of all, for having me along to speak with you today. I've been looking forward to it. My name's Jeff Dunn from Spencer Hayes Insurance Brokers. We're independent commercial insurance brokers. So really, no surprises. What that means is we give impartial advice to firms all across the UK, predominantly in the north of England, but not exclusively so. And really, it's all about helping a business owner protect their people, protect the business, and protect the vehicles.
So I know I kind of joked about it at the start there about your background in insurance. So you've done it a few years. Do you want to kind of give us a bit of an overview of how long you've done it for and all that type of stuff?
Yes, certainly. I started work in September 1979, before most of the viewers of this broadcast will have been born, probably. Obviously, I was only 2 years of age when I started. No, I was 16. Insurance has been good to me. I've worked for brokers, insurers, and then back working with a broker again. Sad to say, it's all I've ever wanted to do. And it really matches my skills, which I would describe as being pretty good with people, and also a salesman, a professional salesman. So I've learned the technical side of insurance, and really it's just all about applying it, understanding a client's business, and then after I've understood the business, go away and put together with my colleagues the solution that's appropriate for that client's business.
Absolutely. So before we go into kind of generally about insurance, like to obviously we're still week 6 of lockdown, is it now? But kind of really, yeah, I think it is. I'd be really interested to know how your world's been affected over the past 6 weeks with all the changes and everything that's going on.
Yeah, sure. Well, there's two sides to that. First of all, how it's affected me personally. Well, I'm home based anyway, so no change there. But the difference is my partner Helen is also home working now, so she has what was my desk, and I'm now consigned to one of the bedrooms, which is where I'm speaking to you from now. So we found that we haven't been arguing, which I think is probably one of the things that would typically come from a prolonged period of lockdown. We've been blessed that way. From a health point of view, we've been out with the dogs, etc. And we're just looking forward to hearing Boris's announcement, hopefully at the weekend, about a gradual, phased, sensible relaxation of the current lockdown rules and a return to work for our clients. And then a fuller return to work eventually for ourselves at Spencer Hayes, although obviously we're fully working, albeit from home. So that's the personal side. From a client side, Mike, we've noticed a complete diverse range of things across all sectors, as you'd imagine. We've got clients who run a fleet of vehicles, a taxi fleet, who literally, because business has dried up, because you can't social distance, they've literally taken all of the vehicles off the road. We have other clients who were doing taxi work or courier work, parcel delivery work, who've seen the opportunity to do work for the NHS, which I think's clever thinking, but also helps the NHS at this time. And we have a lot of clients who, unfortunately, have had to shut up shop. They either haven't got any money, or they're unable to get the raw materials that they need for their manufacturing processes. So their buildings are sitting empty at the moment. And again, that comes with its own issues from an insurance point of view of having an unoccupied building for a long period of time.
Absolutely. I guess when this all first kind of started and we were put in lockdown, I'm guessing you probably found a lot of questions where people said, am I covered for this?
Yes. And there were a couple of problems with that. One was very, very early doors. The government, I'm not sure they said directly, but they intimated, do not worry, the insurance industry will look after you. Well, of course, we'll try and look after the client. That goes without saying, particularly at Spencer Hayes, where we're service focused. However, we can only look after the client if the cover is there to look after the client. Now, the problem with coronavirus, COVID-19, as is that, number one, the government eventually made it a notifiable disease. However, it's classed as a new disease of a pandemic nature. It hadn't been around before. Therefore, those clients who did have an element of cover where they could seek some form of financial compensation in the event of a disease situation were stymied from being able to claim because this is a new situation. And then, it wasn't something that insurers had catered for previously. So there might have been, I hope there hasn't, but there might have been a little bit of bitterness or bad feeling on behalf of some of the business community, partly due to the accidental statements made by the government, which indicated, do not worry, all of you will be all right. Well, that's unfortunately, Mike, that's not the case.
Absolutely. Now, obviously, you mentioned a few times yourself as an insurance broker. Now, some people might not know what the difference between an insurance company is and an insurance broker. And actually, I guess, just generally speaking, the role of an insurance broker, whilst obviously this isn't a sales pitch to what you do, but just kind of gives kind of an overview of what a broker or a good broker should do for a business.
Yeah, certainly. Okay, so an insurance company, first of all, sells its own products. That's pretty straightforward. An insurance broker takes a couple of roles. First of all, there are some insurance brokers who work with just a panel of insurers, no magic number, 6 insurers, 10 insurers, and that's like a limited panel solution. Or there are brokers such as ourselves who are completely independent, not reliant on 6 to 10 insurers. So we can provide what's known as a whole of market solution, which I would argue is probably better for the client. We could probably discuss that for a couple of hours. But in terms of what the benefit of an insurance broker is, it's certainly from the business community, is who's an expert on insurance. Most clients I've come across are experts on running their own business, rather than being experts on insurance. So what the role of an insurance broker is to sit down, or should be the role, is to sit down with the client, understand the risk, visit the client's premises, do a walk around, do a risk assessment, because there's 2 elements that we cater for. One is the actual insurance solution, and the second is how could the client improve what they do and how they do it from an insurance perspective to make the risk better and safer, which might ultimately reward the client, Mike, in terms of a lower insurance premium going forward. Absolutely. So basically that's what we do. We find out about the client, don't offer them a vanilla solution, and only once we understand the client can we then build the solution for them.
Absolutely. Reminder to anyone, if you've got any questions or comments, please send them in. Now, we've had one on LinkedIn, Jeff. I think you might like this before we move on. I believe it might from a colleague of yours, Mark. He's asked if you had a new haircut.
Yes, Mark, I did touch on this at our last dial-in. Helen did it for me at the weekend, and she seems to have made a pretty good job. I asked her to cut the grey out, but obviously I would have been bald if that was the case.
Well, yeah, I think it's something we're all desperate for, is a haircut. I know I'm getting to that stage now. So moving back to insurance anyway. For a lot of, I guess the experience you have in the industry, you've seen quite a few examples of where things haven't worked well, where they've gone wrong. So people have had the wrong cover or whatever it may be. You got any examples that you can think of without obviously naming anybody that you can kind of get some maybe common examples or common mistakes that people make?
Yes, certainly. So with motor insurance, having some form of motor insurance is compulsory, as you'll know, because of government requirements to license a vehicle and have basic insurance. Another form of compulsory insurance, if you have employees, is public liability insurance. So one of the most common situations I come across is people who have either had public liability insurance, not claimed on it, and then thought, do you know what, I can do without this? Or people who will look me in the eye and say, oh, I didn't know I had to have that. Well, I'll reserve judgment on whether they knew they had to have it or not. Yeah. But for the avoidance of doubt, they definitely have to have public liability insurance if you have employees. So that would be the most common thing. There's another insurance called professional indemnity insurance, which basically covers you for the financial consequence of being found lacking in the advice that you gave to a client where they suffer a financial loss. This is as I'm even saying it, it sounds quite obscure. This is a form of insurance that a lot of companies genuinely are either unaware of or choose not to buy, but it's really important to have. So I wouldn't call it a mistake, but it's certainly an omission or an error not to have that cover.
No, absolutely. I guess that's kind of the worst situation for a lot of people is people who think they've got certain covers in place, but for whatever reason, they've slightly got the wrong cover or whatever it might be. That's one of the big issues I'm sure that you come across as well.
Yes, underinsurance is prevalent all the time, and it really arises from two things. Did the client get the right advice at the time the very first insured the business, and have they regularly reviewed that annually with their broker, if they have a broker, to make sure that in line with the growth of their business, they've increased the cover on their assets to make sure they're adequately protected. I was talking to a scaffolder client of mine the other week, in fact, two separate clients, and I was looking after them for the liabilities insurance, which is quite expensive, although we're quite good at helping scaffolders out with that. But both of them, one of them had £70,000 worth of scaffolding poles, planks and joints, and the other had £150,000 worth of the same. Wow. Both of them have zero cover on that equipment. Now, I partly get their thinking, and think, well, no one's going to nick my scaffolding, and if they do, I'll hear about it, or I'll see it, or somebody will tell me. But I had a situation when I used to live up in Newcastle where somebody arrived in a flatback truck, dismantled an entire set of scaffolding and took it away. Now, the only thing wrong with that story is the person who did that wasn't the scaffolder. It was the criminal. And of course, if you saw somebody dismantling scaffolding, naturally you'd think that it was the scaffolder, wouldn't you?
Yes, you wouldn't think twice about it, really, would you?
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. So I guess the moral of the story is with that is that update and regularly look at what cover you've got, whether through your broker ideally, or even if it's yourself, is important, because businesses don't stand still. It's probably very different to our personal experiences where you might stay in the same house and have the same car, and those things kind of stay pretty much static, whereas businesses, more often than not, will change. And that's the importance of reviewing what you've got regularly.
Very, very much so. We'd love to help as many clients as we can. I would say that, wouldn't I? But leaving myself and my company to one side for a moment, I would just say to anyone whoever listens to this broadcast, get a review from an independent commercial insurance broker. It would be well worth the time, and there's no cost for the review.
Oh, perfect, Jeff. Well, the question I was going to ask you is kind of, I suppose it's going back to what situation we're in right now. How do you think the world of insurance will change based on the experiences we're having now? I think most industries, most people are understanding that things will change, and whether it's accelerating of trends or whatever it may be. How do you kind of see the world of insurance changing over the next months and years because of what's going on?
Okay, well, first of all, can I preface what I'm going to say by saying I wish I had a crystal ball, but I haven't.
Of course.
Second thing would be to say I hope, absolutely hope, that there are currently ongoing secret or semi-secret talks between all the regulatory bodies that govern insurance and the major insurers to get their heads together to map out a what-if scenario. And for me, that what-if scenario would be, what if this happens again? Or what if something different, but with the same consequence, happens again? One of the major areas that we all in the industry need to get right is what can and can't be claimed for under a section of cover called business interruption. So typically, if your factory or your workplace burnt down, you could have a scenario while you're waiting for the insurer to pay you up, for the fire, of can you continue your operation elsewhere, perhaps in rented premises, for a short period of time. So you've got money coming in and the business continues to run. The problem, as I outlined a little bit earlier in this interview, is that under business interruption, where you typically look at an area of cover, a thing called denial of access, government on, which is before. So
it appears like we've lost Jeff, or I can't hear him anymore. Jeff, can you hear me still?
Can hear perfect.
Perfect. Yeah, we just lost you for a second or so there. Finally, now I'll just ask one more question. As you know, for me, collaboration is something I talk about a lot. In terms of your world, who are the type of businesses? Oh, we've lost Jeff completely by the looks of it. I'll ask that question to him and get a written response from that. So thank you, everyone. I've had a few technical problems there towards the end. Hope that was useful. Any questions for Jeff, obviously feel free to put on any of the various broadcasts, the various channels that we've got. I'm sure Jeff will be more than happy to answer them. One thing I always ask towards the end of the broadcast, I ask for his contact details. So again, we'll put those details into the various channels, or you can just directly contact me or the Northern Affinity, and we've got all those details. So thank you, everyone, for your time. Hope that was useful. Sorry again for the slight technical issue right at the end there, but we nearly finished anyway, so it wasn't the worst timing. Thank you again, and have a good day.